Today I'm with Gautam Sachdeva. To me, he's a friend, a guide, a mentor, if I'm allowed to say that, and a lovely presence in my life that I'm grateful for. I tried to write him an introduction, but we're here to talk about his book today. So I found something lovely in the book that I feel is an apt introduction. On Tuesday, July 28th, 2009, someone wrote a letter to Gautam. It says, Dear Gautam, the very beginning of your life was the beginning of your spiritual journey. It started on the very first day you were born in your very first lifetime. The whole idea of a spiritual world, what it contains, who is there, and how it functions has been with you since the beginning of time. It was always there and only grew stronger with every new lifetime. So your past lives are very responsible as a basis for the present one, especially those which you spent in the snow mountains, because you were in close company of so many who walked the spiritual path. However, at this time, it is the seaside that attracts you more, and your future is also very much around the area of the ocean now. All this has come as an inheritance from your mother's side, and she has been your mentor in many lives. You had many powerful gurus in the past, and therefore have some powerful pulls in different directions now. Do not let it confuse you, because you will find your closer connections before this time's journey is ended. You have a very important role to play in revealing the deeper meaning of life to mankind. And this is why you have been drawn to doing it, are doing it, and will be doing it even more as time goes by. I thank you for all you have done and are doing. It is my pleasure to know you. Could you tell us who wrote this letter and what's the story behind it?
Well, Vishwas, some viewers might find it abstract. You see, this letter has come from the subtle realms. And the story is that in my journey of publishing, when it just began, a book came to us written by a mother who had lost her son. And the son was quite famous. He was a jockey. He was doing exceptionally well in the races. But he was one race away from the trophy, and he fell from the horse, came under the hooves of the horse, and went into hospital. And it was big news in Bombay at that time. He had many fans. They camped at the hospital. They were well-wishers. But unfortunately, he passed. Now, his mother, Nan Umriga, a Parsi lady, with no concept of the spiritual world, the spiritual dimension, regular Parsi family, household, somehow got drawn to the spiritual path. And through the process of what is called automatic writing, which viewers can look up on the internet, her son started communicating with her. But the beauty of this story is that the first words the son used were the words of a spiritual master called Meher Baba. You see? And she had never heard this name before. So it was her discovery through her son in the spirit world that led her to her guru, who was no longer in the body, called Meher Baba. Meher Baba is very famous, and there's a lot written about him. And so this is also very interesting, I must tell you. Nan Umriga approached us through a common friend because she had independently published her book. Now, mind you, this is going back to the 1990s when such a topic was taboo. She was looked down upon because of even valid points like you should not communicate with the departed, so and so, don't disturb them, and all that. But you see, the authenticity of her journey was the spiritual connect with a spiritual master. So she was clearly guided. So she published this book on her own, which is so commendable. And it became what we would call in those days an underground bestseller. It was not from a big publishing house. It was by one lady, but she would print copies, they would sell. Print copies, they would sell. And she reached a stage where she felt she needed to pass the book on to a publishing house. Because she could not do it on her own beyond a point. That is when she approached us. Now, I was in two minds. Deep within me, I knew this story is worth publishing. But as a spiritual publisher, the doubt was there. Will it sell? Will it be judged? And so on and so forth. And so I asked the universe to give me some signs.
Okay.
And it was very interesting. One sign is, as I read the book, I saw a photo of a horse and the name of the horse below the photo. It had won many races in its time.
This is in the book.
This is in the book.
You saw the picture in the book.
Yeah, in Nan's book.
Nan's book.
Now, my father used to go to the race course on weekends. And I have a memory that when he would come back home, he would always mention his favorite horse. It was the name Royal Turn.
Royal Turn.
And so when I read Nan's book, I saw the photo of the horse and it was written Royal Turn. I took that as the first sign. The second sign was very peculiar. I was in Jaipur with my sister and brother-in-law, and we had time to spare. So we went to a kind of museum in a fort. I don't remember the name now. An art gallery.
Okay.
And one guy came from nowhere and said, I'd like to be your tour guide. Pay me what you want.
Okay.
We said, all right. So he was taking us painting to painting to painting. Till we reached a painting of a young lad on a horse. And he said, this is Prince so-and-so in the year so-and-so. He fell off his horse and died. So I found it uncanny that the story was so similar to Karl Umriga and his horse.
It's a sign.
Second sign. Third sign. I was driving somewhere and someone knocked on the door. So I thought maybe it's a beggar or maybe a cop. You won't believe it. It was a jockey with the jockey helmet.
On the road?
And just wanted to know the time because he was late for his race.
Wow.
It was near the race course. This is in Pune. I was in Pune at the time. So then I felt that it needs to be done. And so coming back to this letter, now the author Nan Umriga, once we published her book, Sounds of Silence, I didn't really know her on a personal level. It was a publisher-author relationship. She didn't know my past. She didn't know my background. Nothing. But she got me this message from Karl, the one you have read out. So that is how it finds its way in the book.
And when you read the letter, it feels like the person who's written it knows you so well.
Yes.
And it's written by someone who you never physically met.
Yeah. Only had heard of.
Only had heard of.
Yeah. It's amazing. You see, what we see is so limited. There's so much we don't see. So many forces at play that we are not aware of consciously. And this is the dimension I have explored in this book. I know the risk is to be judged, but it is a part of life's experience, at least for me. And so I have exposed it in the hope that it provides glimpses, insights to different people in different ways, like shining a light on their journey.
I feel the risk to be. I feel people judge these kind of things because, and I know these people there. Like I know them in my personal life. When you say there's only so much you can see and there's so much more, to a lot of people that sounds scary.
Yes.
To them it sounds slightly, if I may use the word, intimidating to them. And how would you explain this phenomena to them?
Well, you see, it is a fear of the unknown.
It is.
Clearly. And I must admit that the unknown has its share of problems also. So that is also there. Because some people dabble in the wrong way into these aspects. And therefore it is best to stay on course, no doubt. But my journey has been one of being open and receptive and taking what appeals to me, what enhances my worldview. And that is how I have led my life. You see, even today, now my specific path was Advaita, non-duality. That is what grabbed me and kept me there for my entire life. But I have other influences as well. The Tibetan influence is very strong. The Sufi influence is very strong. Lot of different paths have shown me different things. So I didn't want to be straitjacketed that this is the only way.
Understood.
I have experienced this not only as a publisher, but as someone who gives talks on spirituality. People narrow cast their view and say, oh, this is the only way. And this is the better way. The arrogance of the spiritual ego. So I prefer this openness.
Yet at the same time, Advaita acted like an anchor for you.
Yes, that was very clear, that this was my home. See, when you know what your home is, you can wander anywhere because you know where you're coming back. You're not going astray.
You're not going astray.
So this is very important, to identify one's spiritual home. And for that, my teacher gave a very simple formula. Wherever you find deep peace, nothing else, no colorful visions, ecstatic states of samadhi, and so on and so forth. Sukha Shanti. Where you find that deep, constant peace, which is true happiness, that is one's home. That is why he would say that when you are on the spiritual journey, the only measure is the degree of peace that you feel. Now, some people say, oh, it's too simplistic, it's too basic. So be it. For them, it may be. I don't know. But I do know that this peace, the peace that surpasses understanding, is for me what life is about.
Sitting where you are today, after the long journey.
Yes, because I've seen it all. I have met yogis, clairvoyants, I have seen things which could be called miraculous. But at the end of the day, how I live my life morning to night, how I relate with people, how I relate with the events in my life which transpire, and how I relate with myself, that is what I'm left with. Because everyone's days are numbered. We don't know when the number ends.
Yes, sir.
So through that journey of daily living, finding my peace, being with it, navigating through life, that I feel is the greatest gift the spiritual dimension has to offer one.
So then, how do you understand God and uh, the pursuit of it?
You see, the shortest definition of God was given by my spiritual teacher Ramesh Balsekar. God is what is. God is what is in the moment. Consciousness, here and now, in the present moment. This is God. It is not a form somewhere up in the heavens. We agree that God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-pervasive, everywhere.
Everywhere.
So if that is so, then this moment, which is the only moment there ever is where God is. And what happens now is God. But to understand this, what does it mean? It means the person in front of me, whether I like them or not, is an aspect of the one source consciousness. Am I aware of that when I'm dealing with them? Or have I separated them from God, from the source, imbued them with power, and consider them separate from me? So you see, it comes down to daily living. Like I said earlier, the person in front of you, the situation you are faced with, pleasure or pain, is God. It has come from God, right?
Yeah.
Unasked. And your relationship with yourself in this moment. Are you comfortable with yourself? So, I know this sounds perhaps not the norm when people ask what is God. But this is the way you could say in the path of Gyan Yoga.
Yes, sir.
The path of knowledge, to live and breathe this concept, understand it, see what it delivers in daily living for yourself. That is why the great sage Ramana Maharshi, when he was asked what is the purpose of life, he said the purpose of life is to realize the self. Now, which self? The one self with the capital S, which is God, consciousness, the source, called by any other names. So to understand this, what you see appears as two, but is not, is to see God. Appears as two.
But is not.
You there, me here. But fundamentally is not. Because there is only one source, one power, not two.
Okay, coming from where I come in life, I have felt great things in some of the most remote temples. My father was, someone who was very fond of going to these temples. So as a kid, I remember, he'd wake me up at 4 o'clock, chalo chalne gaadi mein baitho, and, we'd go to this Baba Balaknath temple, do the darshan, have a cup of tea, drive 7 hours all the way back. And, but as I grew up, I have felt some great things in temples, and, like I share some sort of relationships with some deities, very intimate, just for myself. Now, understanding how I understand how you're defining God, something in me agrees with you. Something I simply agree with you. I just, I'm not trying to formulate it in any way. Something deep in me resonates with that. But then all these temples that we go to, and, these lovely sojourns that you've had, and, what is all this about? What is Baba Hanuman and Baba Ganpati And in relation to how we understand God as the capital S self, how do we understand these phenomena?
You see, in my understanding, these are all aspects of God, aspects of consciousness, the source. Ganpati, the Lord of the Gunas, the Lord of auspicious beginnings, remover of obstacles. The form of Ganpati represents that. And as my mother had the divine vision, she saw that when the third eye, which is the Agnya Chakra, is in rhythm with the Manipur Chakra, the seat of relationships, then isn't it obvious that one will manifest auspicious beginnings and no obstacles coming one's way because one is in harmony.
Harmony. Okay.
So gods represent the states of consciousness.
Okay.
Shiva consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And why do some temples impact us more than others? Because we come with a certain vibration. So where we resonate with, we prefer that place. We have an experience there. Now, my journey was very unique. I have never had any experiences in any temples, yet I've gone to many temples, probably much more than the average person. Because in my dream state or in my meditations, names came to me of temples. And mind you, this is someone who, as a child, had no interest in visiting temples.
You mentioned
I used to run away from that.
Yeah.
And the upbringing was very English. I was in Montessori, then a Jesuit school. So it was quite alien to go to such places. But again, I thank my stars that I took these subtle hints seriously. And so in the book, I have written about these places I have never heard of. Of course, some famous temples one has heard of, but there are many temples here which the average person does not know exist. But I was drawn to them from a power which was not part of my conscious will and conscious mind. And being open and receptive and going there, making myself available, I had no prayer to offer there. I didn't ask for anything. I just said, here I am. You have got me here. Please grant me whatever you wish to grant me. And I left. It is as simple as that.
Just so interesting. Speaking of Ganpati, with who you start this, Lord of my dreams, Lord of my life.
Yeah.
There's this lovely darshan that your mother had in her dream while she was pregnant with you.
Yes.
Which you shared in the first chapter. Could you share that with us?
Well, that is for the readers to read, but that is how the journey began. And what is interesting, the vision she had of Ganpati stayed in her memory. It was so strong when I was born. But let's say when I was about 40 years old, which is 40 years after that vision. For her, it was just a vision. But what happened was, she went with her best friend by car to Goa. Just for a holiday.
Okay.
And they were coming back from Goa to Bombay.
Okay.
After the holiday. And the car broke down. The car breaks down about 2 or 3 hours from Goa. And the driver says that there's a small town here. We'll have to spend the night, unscheduled, while I repair the car. So they go there. And the name of the town is Ganpati Pule. In Maharashtra, it's quite famous. And so they have nothing to do. They don't know the town. So the locals say there's a very famous temple. You go there. So they go to the temple. Very nice, small temple. They have a good darshan. And they see the temple is on the beach, right on the beach. So the minute my mother put foot on the beach, that vision which she had when I was born came in front of her. And when she saw it in totality, the sky, the sea, the beach, she realized that this is the place which came in her vision then.
Wow.
So, would you not say that the car didn't break down by accident there? You see, everything is a completion. We sometimes go back to a place we are meant to go to. It's incredible. We think things are accidents. We land up by mistake somewhere here, somewhere there. But there's a divine plan, a divine blueprint. Everyone is exactly where they are supposed to be. Nobody is special. I'm not special that this happened, or everyone. The comfort is in knowing that we are precisely where we are meant to be at a given time. It could not be any other way. And we need to remember this when we are not happy with where we are.
Which mostly is true for everybody.
Yes, but this remembrance is important. We suffer the pain in the moment because we are unhappy, but the balm, the soothing balm is knowing it was meant to be this way. At least I am convinced that wherever I am, wherever I go, I am meant to be there. Whether I like it or not is secondary. And this thought gives peace.
It does. The thinking mind stops.
Yes.
And I feel a lot of people think that, if you think like this, that, I am where I'm supposed to be, you won't do anything about your situation. But I've personally experienced that, especially after hearing from you and by trying to practice this, that every time I remind myself that I am where I was supposed to be and I calm down, I'm always able to take better steps to improve my situation because of the circumstance.
Yes, because the mind is not lost in complaining and judging.
And the agitation is gone.
Yeah. So it's quite true that when that is gone, when the thinking mind is quieted down, I'm left with just, without the complaint and just the pure pain in the moment of not being happy, let's say. But there's no psychological story now which I am dissolving into all the time. And because of that, because I'm more contained, more at peace with my situation, I respond to it rather than react to it. That is what happens.
Another interesting essay in Heart to Heart is Mahayogi's message of simplicity about Gagangiri Maharaj.
Yes.
And I also live in Bombay. To imagine someone like Gagangiri Maharaj living so close to Bombay,
right,
with the kind of service he was doing through his incarnation,
yes,
is incredible.
Yes,
to know.
Absolutely. I think it is my good fortune. This was around the year 1999 when I met him.
Okay.
And how it happened was, so my mother's spiritual experiences, which she drew a diary, she made a diary, she did her drawings. You could say completed in around 1999, beginning of 1999.
Okay.
Then we found an editor, and the editor knew Gagangiri Maharaj. So when this diary was complete and we decided to bring it out as a book so that it could help others on the path who are having similar experiences. You see, this is an important point I'd like to touch upon. My mother's journey of spiritual experiences is what is referred to as a Kundalini awakening.
Okay.
She had a full-blown Kundalini awakening. But in her case, what is unique is it was not accompanied by pain. Normally, this is a path which one is not supposed to walk on because it's fraught with dangers. But by the grace of the Almighty and because she was under the guidance of a guru, she experienced Kundalini as a gentle force. So she had visions, she could see realms, she visited lokas, everything. Coming back to Gagangiri Maharaj, now when this was ready, when the diary was edited, we needed to show it to what you could say, who you could say is an authority. So an authority figure to say yes, go ahead. Not a scholar. With that intent, we went to Gagangiri Maharaj. And I remember that meeting, and he used to be on a swing. He was quite old at that time, in any case. And when they put the drawings in front of him, first he flipped one or two, and then he started laughing. It was a very funny laugh. He was giggling away, you know. So we thought, like, what the hell is going on? Is he thinking this is a joke or what? And he kept pointing at certain drawings. And in Marathi, he told the editor, I know this experience, I know this experience, I know this experience.
Okay.
And he just was blown away by the fact that a normal housewife could experience this.
Was chosen for this.
Yes. To the extent that he wrote a foreword for her first book, which is the first part of the diary, in which he refers to it, her experience, as a Mahadurlabh yoga. And he says this is only possible because of spiritual merits of past births. That someone like her has been given this.
Wow.
So that was the first time we met Gagangiri Maharaj. And then when I was introduced to him, when the editor was just going to mention my name, he said, no, I know him. So I found that a bit odd because I thought I was robbed of an introduction.
If you don't mind me asking, around this time, how old are you?
I was 29.
Oh wow, it's like it's young to have an experience like this.
And then he would send us to the cave in which he meditated. Now they've expanded the cave. They've carved out more of the rock. It's probably 10 times bigger than where he did sadhana. The cave is the same, but because of more people. And it was a dirt road going up.
Okay.
Now there's a cement road. And, you know, with modern times, it has changed. But he was a very unique yogi. And my mother had the vision when she was there, when we would have our lunch there. She could see the Navnaths walking around. The famous Navnaths, whom I've written about in the book.
Yes.
So Gagangiri Maharaj brings back very fond memories because he was literally the start of the journey. And he is the one, when I asked him to bless the spiritual publishing business, because I was in advertising up till then.
Yes, sir.
He gave his blessings and he said, start.
Very auspicious.
Yeah. And another thing, he was a yogi of the forest.
Yeah.
He could communicate with plants, stones, rocks. I mean, he did his sadhana in the river of Kapoli.
Yeah, you've written like the fishes would come and, you know, they chewed on his fingers and all.
Yeah. And that is what is said about. And he would really be hours on end in the river, you see. And I know a friend of mine, his girlfriend once wandered off track when she was there. And she was very scared. And she told my friend, he said, what happened? She said, I saw this man in the middle of the river meditating, and suddenly from his head, 3 heads popped out. Now, I kid you not, this is not some story I've read. This is my friend's ex-girlfriend. So all these strange things I did really hear about. And I must say that that place is very beautiful. Now his samadhi is there. Next to his samadhi is the swing on which he used to sit. They've kept it there. It's very well maintained. It's really beautiful to visit that space. But one memory comes up. I thought to impress him. When I was in Europe, I would visit France. And he liked crystals.
Okay.
So I went to a crystal shop. And I found what I thought were very nice crystals. And when I came back, I gifted them to him. And he looked at it and he said no. So people can read up on Gagangiri Maharaj on the internet. I think there's material. He did a lot of healing work with herbs.
I read about
a lot of healing work. And he was truly, I mean, it was really grace that one came across him.
I've written a small question which I really want to ask you. So what's your first memory of visiting a holy place?
That would have to be Shirdi.
Sai Baba.
Yeah. Because when we were young, my father would take us there once in a while. So that would clearly be Shirdi Sai Baba, who I must admit, I didn't have a great relationship with initially, because being so young and, going for his darshan, one started praying to him in school, like, please help me pass this exam, this and all those things. So I was very, that way, I think I was born disciplined. So I had a set routine, set everything. So Sai Baba would come to mind all the time. And then I have this distinct memory when I was very young. I don't know also how young I was, but I know at that time very few people were in the temple.
Okay.
I could see my parents sitting there, maybe 20, 30 feet from the murti, and I was running around a bit or whatever. And another vision is where at that time, they would take babies, the pandits who were on the platform where the murti is, and they would take the baby from the parents' arms and touch it at the feet of Baba and then return the baby. So I have that memory of being taken from my parents' arms and going straight to the feet and then being given back. That I remember. But why my relationship went a bit off was because when I lost my father when I was 14, I blamed him for it. Because I said, oh, you're supposed to be the protector, all that, And so the murti I had of Sai Baba's in my altar, I put it in the drawer. And if you had told me then that 25 years later or 30 years later, you would be speaking on Sai Baba's teachings, I would have laughed. That is why I keep using the phrase, life is stranger than fiction. My guru used to mention this phrase. And I realized that is my life. It is really stranger than fiction. It's amazing. Everyone's life is stranger than fiction. When they really contemplate on what has happened in their lives, you can't believe some things,
It's surprising.
Really.
While talking about Nan, you mentioned that when you were thinking of publishing her book, you asked for signs. And I've seen myself subconsciously looking for signs when I'm unable to make decisions. I actually learned from the book that you just asked for them, that I want to do this and, please tell me, show me some signs if I should do this or not. I think I keep subconsciously doing them. I would love if you could talk a little bit more about how the universe guides you towards the decisions which are, I don't know, better for you, or it tries to show you the way.
You see, this is a tricky thing.
It is.
One should not constantly look for signs.
Okay.
After all, where's the trust? One has to trust the universe. Now, mind you, I would like to clarify one point about signs. We think if we get a sign, we'll get a positive outcome.
Okay.
That is not so. The sign will only point to your destined path. Now, for example, the signs I received to publish Nan's book does not mean it will be a bestseller.
Understood.
We kind of hook on a sign coming from the universe, like people are fascinated by numbers, seeing the same numbers again and again and whatever. There are so many ways signs come.
Yes.
I'm not trying to belittle signs.
Yes.
All I'm saying is, in moments when there's no clarity, signs come to bring clarity. But
Yes.
we assume that because we have the sign, we have a positive outcome in our lives. That is not so,
That's
not
not
in my
right.
experience.
Okay.
I find that the signs are there to show us this is the path to learn what we are meant to learn on life's journey.
Okay.
Because we are all meant to learn lessons. But the problem is the human being wants only positive outcomes.
Yeah.
And then feels let down by the signs because the outcome was not positive. You see? So we have to be very careful on this subject of signs.
Science.
At least that's what I feel.
Yeah.
Someone else who's maybe more into the subject of signs and manifestation and all may have a different view. But my understanding was signs, whenever they came, they helped me walk the road which I was meant to walk on, but perhaps I was doubting.
Yeah. This which I noticed that every time you found difficulty trusting your own instinct while others around you, like for example, Nan's book, the other people were telling you that this might not work right now in the market. And even when you were publishing your mother's book, there was skepticism around publishing a book like that, if it will work or not. And then Gagangiri Maharaj came and, he gave you the Adesh, which is like a sign. And at Nan's time, you got 3 different signs. So I feel that's the kind of dilemmas I'm talking about, where there are times in life where your instinct, subtle instinct, is telling you to do something which others are not able to see.
Yes, that's well said. And that's completely it. Now, in my mother's book, what happened was, when her experience was over, we showed it to a few people who knew a bit on the subject, which we didn't know. She didn't know much. She was very raw. She had not studied this,
Correct.
you see. What was unique was when she had the experience and she would go to a bookstore. Near our house in Kala Ghoda used to be, I think it's still there, the Chetana bookstore. So she's walking in the bookstore, she hears a sound zzz, like that. And so she would go towards the sound and put the finger on the shelf, and where the sound would stop, she would pull out the book and find the reference to her experience. So when her diary was done, some people said, look, you should never reveal your spiritual experiences because they will stop. That is a belief which is a valid belief. Others said you should not reveal your experiences because you'll be judged as going mad, delusional, hallucinating, and so on and so forth. So it was very confusing for us. Do we go ahead or do we not? We didn't do it for money. There's no money in this kind of thing.
In fact, you've written that it required another kind of investment from you because, the quality of the papers had to be nice. And
because it was, the drawings were in color.
In color.
So then ultimately, she had to ask herself, what is the intent? And the intent was that if others go through a similar experience, they have a roadmap. I must tell you something very fascinating. Now, my guru was an Advaita guru. He had no interest in talking about the Kundalini. It was not his experience. He had met my mother on a few occasions. So whenever any aspirant came to his satsang with a question on Kundalini and chakras, he would say, go and see Gautam's mother. Now, one time, a German lady came. Very well read, not only academically, but spiritually. And this conversation happened. I was there then. And so he pointed to me and said, you can take her number from her son and you go and meet her. So I wanted to be at home when she came to meet my mother. And what she said was that the experience she had, she was put onto drugs, psychiatric drugs, because they said she was losing her mind. And actually what was happening was a
awakening.
Kundalini awakening. So finally there was someone she could talk to. So that is proof enough that sometimes you have to trust your instincts that this needs to come out. For whatever reason, the divine is willing it to come out. And of course, she asked her guru, Justice do that, and he said, please go ahead. If you feel like bringing it out, you must bring it out. And she got validations from some other Shias, so that gave her a bit of confidence, because we were really not confident. We were new to this path.
Absolutely.
But even more interestingly, before it came out, some months before, she had a vision where her book is in the astral realms, taking shape, and one hand is coming and stamping it. Like a stamp of approval.
Couldn't be more clear.
Which means it's predetermined.
It is. It is, because as I read your other essays, and now that I look back at your journey as a publisher and the advertising company, while the advertising company was coming down, your mother had these experiences and she wanted to share them. Because she wanted to share them, you had to publish the first book. If you didn't have this book publishing business, then you wouldn't have had this new journey, would not have started. And just the Gagangiri Maharaj meeting and all the other meetings that you've had because of that one particular book.
Yes.
You met so many, sadhus and saints and
that is so
all
true.
kinds of people. And all of that is connected to her deciding to share that book with people.
And, we made all the possible mistakes because I was new to publishing. My agency was called Impressions. My art director then, he used to moonlight from a very big agency. I said, Shekhar, we need to call this publishing company something. He said, show me your mother's drawings. And what is constant is a seated figure in meditation, right? Throughout. Because the experiences are around that figure. He said, this looks like a yogi. Just finish the job. Call your company Yogi Impressions. So it became Yogi Impressions. The logo became the seated yogi. It was all in a flash of a second. There was no major planning, branding or anything. Wow. It was spontaneous. And all the mistakes possible. I overspent on the printing because my background was advertising, brochures for clients and those things, not a book. So many mistakes were made, and that taught me one lesson. Don't judge by the projects you fail at, because they teach you a lot. Because of the mistakes we made on that book, while it hurt us financially, as you just pointed out, so much else happened.
Yes, sir.
That we didn't repeat those mistakes when other books got published. So we are too quick to judge when things go wrong. Everything is a learning. Everything. And in fact, we learn mostly through pain. And I remember when I wrote to Eckhart Tolle, of the best-selling author of The Power of Now, that this has started happening, that I am transitioning from advertising to spiritual book publishing. He said, thank God.
That whole story of how you published that book is also, it's out of a movie, to be honest.
Yes.
How The Power of Now came into your...
For India, for the Indian.
India.
Yeah. That was really amazing.
It's a lovely story.
Yeah. You see, I am blessed to have come across Eckhart Tolle and of course Ramesh Balsekar, because I found these two to have the simplest of approaches to life, the simplest teachings, very pragmatic, very oriented to daily living in their respective ways. Eckhart's messages about being in the now and how he dissects all the ego's antics of trying to avoid the now. You see, and Rameshji's teaching, when the thinking mind is dissolved, when it's no longer living in the past or an imaginary future, not blaming anyone, it's in the now.
It's in the now.
So both were pointing to the present moment, which you could say is the living experience of the now. Most of us are not able to live in the now, though we think we are. It's as simple as you meet someone today and you're talking to them, but your mind is on what else I have to do during the course of the day, or thinking of something else.
Like to be honest, for right now, since I'm talking to you right now, and twice or thrice, I found myself thinking about what questions are coming, and I pulled myself out of there back into listening to you.
Because that is the nature of the mind.
That's the nature of the mind.
So I'm really grateful that I didn't go around in circles. I was fortunate that because Eckhart was a very important catalyst for me also. It was like a quickening. Meeting him was like a quickening.
And when did you realize this?
I realized this later, in hindsight. Because you see, I had met him in November 99 for the first time in Hong Kong. And Ramesh ji I met in Feb 2000.
After
2 months
you met
after.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
In fact, it was my sister and her friends my sister was living in Hong Kong at that time. They had called Eckhart to Hong Kong in November 99. That is where I met him and I was on holiday. And then they came in Feb 2000 for my mother's book launch of her first book because they were very close to my sister. And they in any case had heard so much about Ramesh Balsekar that they wanted to meet him.
Oh, so they were responsible for both the meetings.
Yes. So because they went to someone called Ramesh Balsekar and said, hey, you guys live in the same city. He's 20 minutes away and you haven't gone. You should go. Thanks to them, we went.
And you had not heard of Rameshji by then.
But the joke is, after I visited his satsangs for about 6 months, I was having breakfast one day at my table. And I look up on the bookshelf and I see a face, which is his. And it was the book Consciousness Speaks, which someone had gifted to my mother way before. So can you imagine when I looked at that, I said, he was already in my house even before I knew it.
He was sitting at the vantage point.
Really?
This is very interesting.
Very interesting. There's so much we look at but don't see.
Yeah. Because we're not in the present moment.
Yes.
Gautam, after knowing you for so long, I had no idea that you were the person who introduced the power of now to this country.
Not me, really. Actually, my sister is to be thanked for it, Nikki.
Oh, okay.
You see, it's interesting. When Nikki was living in Hong Kong, one of her close friends was visiting Vancouver. In the bookstore, he found The Power of Now. It was newly published, loved reading it, and went back to the bookstore and they said the author lives here only in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
And he met the author, Eckhart Tolle. And then they were so impacted by his book that they invited him to Hong Kong.
Which year would this be, approximately?
I suppose 98, 99.
Late 90s.
Yeah, 90s.
Okay.
And in 99, now I don't know whether that was his first trip or second, I'm not sure. But I was holidaying in Hong Kong in November 99. And he was there at a friend's place.
Okay.
And at that time, The Power of Now was just out. Very fresh. So they had fixed up 1-to-1 sessions with Eckhart.
Okay.
So Nikki said that I have booked one for you. And I protested because I was on holiday. I had no conscious interest in the subject. But she was very keen that I meet him.
But you had no idea who Eckhart is?
I had no idea. I didn't know what the book was about. I hadn't met Ramesh Balsekar till then. It was very fresh, everything.
So you had no spiritual inclinations by then in terms of understanding Advaita or the...
No conscious inclination.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I went under protest. I went to their house and I met Eckhart. And I said, Eckhart, I have nothing to ask you because I'm on holiday. Now in hindsight, I can imagine how maybe ignorant or arrogant I must have sounded. But truly that was where I was. And he was so okay with that. He said, we can talk about anything or about nothing. We can just sit. And so that was my first meeting, thanks to Nikki, thanks to her friends who hosted him. That was my first meeting with Eckhart. where it was just plain normal talking.
And what was he like? From whatever you remember, like...
We talked about our observations about Hong Kong. I said how a lot of people wear the color black, which really struck me in the daytime.
Yes, they do.
They do, right?
Yeah.
And how there are so many banks all over the place. And you could say mundane things.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing really one could say which had much gravitas or import.
Mm.
But now here's interesting. When I left the room, and my sister asked me how it was, I said it was quite enjoyable, normal conversation. But, whatever I said, he paid so much attention to me as if what I was saying was very important. This I told my sister then. Now, when I look back, the memory comes up that there was such silence in that room. It was imbued with silence. And so I feel that a kind of transmission took place. Not that he intended it. I was not special. Anyone who must have met him one-to-one at that time would have received something, according to me. In hindsight, I feel I did. And so that first meeting was very special. And then what would happen is, by and by, Eckhart had retreats. He had one in Vancouver, in Cortes Island outside Vancouver. So my sister and her group went. So I was the extra baggage. Then he gave a retreat in Findhorn, Scotland. Again, I was the extra baggage. So that way, after his retreats, we spent a bit of time with him when everyone else had gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have that way a very special relationship with him, but I was there with the others and observed what I did, saw what I saw. That was my experience with Eckhart.
And how about, but first of all, I would like to tell you that the way you felt heard while you were with Eckhart,
yes,
I think most of us who are around you a lot, including Sunita, and we feel the same. When we're around you, this one thing that I feel all of us, I think, feel is that whenever we're talking to you about anything, like cars or anything, I feel like I feel heard. So I'll just take a second to say thank you.
So good. That means that rubbed off on me.
And then how did the publishing of Power of Now happen? Because I've read that by this time you were not doing very well as a publisher.
No, because as I said, my mother's book was a financial drain.
Yeah.
And then my sister called from Hong Kong, said, hey, I'd really love to introduce Eckhart's teachings to India. And I said, look, I'm not that keen because publishing didn't turn out to be that easy. But she said, I will finance it. I will support it.
Okay.
And so we knew the founder of New World Library, which is a publishing house in America, which had published the Power of Now, which was originally with a Canadian publisher. So they took over the world rights. That is how it works in publishing.
Okay.
And wonderful man, Mark Allen. Really an inspiration.
Okay.
And so Nikki, I think, must have met Mark at some place with Eckhart. I don't know the details. So she requested him that if the India rights are available, then we would like to publish it.
Okay.
I mean, he knew that we were a startup.
Okay.
But unfortunately, at that time, he sent a mail saying, I checked, but it seems we have already signed off the Commonwealth rights. And India is a part of the Commonwealth.
Understood.
So Nikki was disappointed. I was relieved. And I thought the matter ended there. And then he wrote back to Nikki after a couple of weeks saying, for some strange reason, India was excluded from the list of countries. And so it is offered to you.
Wow.
So that is how then Nikki sent the finances. That is how we started with the publishing of the Power of Now in India. And I must say, I think this is a great American quality. To trust a startup like us with no background, just going on intuition. I really admire and respect Mark Allen, and at that time he had a partner, Monroe, for that foresight and that trust in us. Because I must tell you that when the Power of Now came out in India, it climbed very quickly. And at that time, one of the leading publishers wrote to them saying that please give us the rights and you can forget about your earlier contract because Yogi Impressions is a startup. And they sent us that mail.
Wow.
They sent a reply to that gentleman, put us in the CC saying the rights are already given and we trusted to take its
That's
course.
professional.
Absolutely. So that is how it began. And I remember Eckhart telling Nikki that this book will be the start of an adventure for Gautam. And you see, what happened was the distributor who refused to look at my mother's book, because it's not a subject for everyone. So I don't blame him.
Yes, sir.
But we would go give the book in bookstores. The bookstores would not pay us. It was very rough. The beginning was very rough. But with the Power of Now, everything changed because they wanted to place more orders. And so then at the same time, I was working on my first book with my spiritual guide. It was called The Ultimate Understanding.
Okay.
And two things I remember. When I was called by Rameshji's editor, the first question he asked me at the joint meeting was, which of my books have you read? I had just started.
Rameshji asked you that?
Yeah, I had just started his satsangs in Feb 2000. So the editor realized that here's this boy who's done his mother's book and who's doing this book called The Power of Now. We don't know much about it.
And why were you called for this meeting?
Because they wanted assistance with publishing this book of his called The Ultimate Understanding.
Ramesh's book.
Yeah,
okay.
Though he had other publishers.
Okay.
So when I went to meet him, he said, which of my books have you read? I froze because I had not read anything.
Not even the one you had sitting on your...
So I said, I might as well be honest. And I told him, I have not read any of your books. And he burst out laughing and said, then you're perfect for the job. So I was perplexed. What does that mean? So he said, let me explain. It means you haven't come with any conditioning. You see? And then a couple of years later, when I published 2 or 3 of Rameshji's books, and we were talking of the Power of Now, I told him, I said, thanks to that book, I can publish your books because your books don't sell easily.
That's true.
It's all connected,
That's
you
true.
see.
The hierarchy of events is incredible.
Yeah. So that is... so I'm immensely grateful to Eckhart because quite right. You see, my adventure started with my mother's book, his book, meeting him.
Absolutely.
And it was a delight when he came to India at that time. I mean, I was very nervous. We set up an event for him in South Mumbai and some band or something was declared. And it was a 2-day event. The first day, I think, was sold out. And the band was declared. So I was thinking no one will show up on the second day. And he was so absolutely okay with it. I told him the trains may not work, this, that. I was quite nervous. And he said, it is what it is. And I think, if my memory serves me right, the first day we had about 450 people.
Wow.
And the second day about 300. So it wasn't that bad.
But in my personal, in the people that I know in my life closely, there are people that book has changed their lives.
Yes.
That book changed the lives of a lot of people.
No doubt.
And most of them who were in deep pain.
Yes.
Even Jim Carrey, in one of his interviews, credits the Power of Now.
That's right.
For his experience. How close are Eckhart's teaching and Ramesh's teaching, if we just simply want to understand them?
Well, I feel the approaches are very different. They are coming from different angles.
Okay.
but they reach the same spot, which is pure being, conscious presence, the annihilation of the thinking mind of the ego. And that is what motivated me to bring the two of them together. When we took Eckhart to Rameshji's home for a cup of tea.
Oh, I have no idea about that.
Oh, I've written an essay. It's on the internet called Consciousness and the Now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was very
They
interesting.
met?
Yeah, they met. It was very interesting, and I don't want to go into it, but if you read the essay.
Okay.
And then Eckhart came home to my home to meet my mother's guru, Justice Dudat.
Oh, wow.
And they were all quite excited to meet him also. And that is why at the end of the day, he was tired and he told us, Indian gurus talk a lot. So it was quite something.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Lovely. That was a lovely chapter.
I must tell you something funny on a side note. Before meeting Eckhart in Hong Kong, I was having dinner with my friend. He was in the police force, very senior, much older than me. Maybe at that time he was 20, 24 years older than me. So Nikki was telling us that, you'll have to come tomorrow. And he said, who's this man? What is this book called? And she said, The Power of Now. He said, what does that mean? So I'll never forget this conversation. She said, it means being in the present moment. So he thought about it and he said, but when I have to shoot criminals, I'm in the present moment. So I don't think meeting him will make any sense to me. So he didn't come. But the whole point was, what when you're not shooting criminals, right?
That's right.
This is an extreme example. But what about the rest of the day? What about your relationships? What consumes your mind?
That's right.
I really feel that some books come along once in a few decades to kind of course correct. Now, as we know, Autobiography of a Yogi was also a tremendous book in its time, right? It opened a new dimension.
It has a huge impact on my life.
Yeah. May not be everyone's cup of tea, like someone who's into Gyan Yoga may not resonate with it. But still, it's a doorway.
Absolutely.
And I feel Eckhart's work and his analysis of the ego, his biggest contribution, according to me, is the concept of the pain body.
Yes, sir.
I think these are concepts that will stay. So his explorations in the power of now and a new earth are immense.
Absolutely. Okay, I think I'm going to now move into the last bit of my talk. And I would like to talk about Rameshji and how he quietly entered your life. And in fact, if you could just share with us the first couple of months of you meeting him and what really happened, and how it happened, and what were you going through in your life at that time?
Well, nothing exceptional. I was very busy with work, with the mundane world, you could say, and just the start of the spiritual publishing. And like I said, I was dragged to his doorstep because my sister said, look, if our friends from Hong Kong have been there, and I think I drove them the first time they went and drove back. And so she said, we must go. So then we went. And I have to be honest, it was not that I saw sparks flying, love at first sight, none of that. I actually was quite blank. I thought it was boring. And the reason I thought it was boring was because I heard this man saying that everything is the will of God umpteen times. And other words didn't make sense to me, like no one is the doer of their actions, but I got the gist of it and it wasn't appealing to me. I wasn't hooked. So it was very strange. It was a very strange beginning for me that my conscious mind kind of felt there's nothing special here. And then at the end of his satsang, the bhajans were being sung, and I was quite amazed to see so many foreigners singing Marathi bhajans. That was more entertaining for me, you see. So I enjoyed that part, and I had no thought I would go back. I thought that was it. Then my sister went back to Hong Kong, and I found that the next Sunday came. And I don't know how.
This is
maybe to see the foreigners singing the Marathi bhajans or what, I really don't know. You see, this is the limitation of the conscious mind. Because I felt a force pulled me there. And the second time I went, again I heard the same thing. It's not that new things were revealed. Again I heard everything is the will of God. And I had no resistance to this statement. That I must clarify. Because I went back to the biggest events in my life, one of which was my father's passing. And when he said everything is the will of God and we have no control over what happens, I could relate to it because it was my life's experience. So there was nothing in his teachings that I resisted. What I thought, Vishwas, was that everyone felt the way I felt. I thought that why is this man stating the obvious? If we all know this. Over time, I realized we all don't resonate with this message. We have to be convinced about it.
Yeah.
So you see, for me, it was like a backward learning. And the second Sunday when I went, so again, it's all the same. Again, I see the same bhajans. It's like a deja vu. Only this time, I saw at the end of the bhajans, some of the people lined up to touch his feet. Now it comes easy for us Indians to touch feet. The Westerners sometimes go through that struggle. So I did that happily. And when I bowed down and he tapped me from above and said, "Is this your second Sunday, young man?" Those were his words. I said, "Yes." He said, "Don't be surprised if this becomes your Sunday church." And I thought, what is this guy talking, you know? And I went there for 9.5 years. It was like a knowing that I would be with him till the end of his journey. I had no doubt.
And you found him 20 minutes away from your house,
Yeah.
Gautam.
I mean, I found Siddha Rameshwar Maharaj 20 minutes away and Ramesh Balsekar.
Absolutely.
In Mumbai.
In the southeast of Mumbai.
Yes. You know, I'll tell you something funny. I used to drive and park the car there. Suddenly, they decided that's a no parking zone. So, one satsang, I'm sitting next to Ramesh and I can hear a towing truck coming and taking a car. So, I got up. I mean, everyone wondered what's going on. I looked out of the window and I panicked because my car was going. So, I ran down. By the time the car was being towed and it had gone down, there was traffic. So I stopped the guy. I said, my car. So he spoke in Marathi and whatever he said. And I said, look, Sunday. And I said the magic word, Guru, Satsang. And he released the car. So I was there really for 9.5 years. It was quite something.
9.5 years is a long time.
You see, my mother repeats this statement by a Tibetan master who tells somebody who has learned his techniques, who has a doubt that I'm going back to America. Is this my future? And the master tells him, your station is already decided. So everyone's station is already decided. Everyone's. No one is an exception to the rule. And so we tend to think too much. Am I in the right place? Am I pursuing the right path? Especially spiritually.
Yes.
And to have this sense of reassurance that if something has appealed to me, you know, my conscious mind may not be aware as to the depth of how much it has appealed to me. But if my heart is pulled by something, that is my station.
Absolutely. The habit of questioning everything is also a pandemic right now.
Yes. In a way, it's good to question. Now, my teacher said, please ask all the questions, because his job was to clear confusion.
Yes.
But today's problem is because there's so much sensory input, so much to take in, because technology was not available earlier, that there's a lot of confusion also. That we didn't have in our time.
Did you get to travel with Rameshji anywhere? Are there any travel stories?
Well, he would do his retreats in Kovalam.
Okay.
So I would go. I was working too much at that time, so I could not go for the full length of the retreat. I would just go for a couple of days or something, but no individual travels.
No individual.
No, but he did come home for my 30th birthday, which was a big thing. Yeah. It was a surprise by my friend, my French friend Xavier, living in Bombay at the time. So I was new. It was the first year of satsang. I met him in Feb. And in October, Xavier went to Ramesh's room and said, you know, my friend has been attending your satsangs like I have, and I'd like to surprise him on his 30th birthday. Will you come home? To his home. And he said yes.
He agreed. That would have been a nice surprise.
And that was a birthday I was really down, because my biggest contract in advertising collapsed that morning.
Oh.
And so I said, I'm not doing anything. I was moping and quite upset. So I was at home, no plans. And in the doorbell rang and Ramesh walked in. And I was really stunned. You see, these moments reveal to you the impact someone has on you. It's a surprise, right?
Yes.
Then you know what has really touched you. Otherwise, the mind is trying to guess, measure, and figure it out.
Find faults in the human.
Yeah.
He also sort of eased you into writing.
Yes, he did. Actually, I wrote on his 90th birthday for myself what all I had learned in a small article. And without his knowing, I gave that to the leading spiritual magazine at the time called Life Positive.
Okay.
And they published it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I had captioned the article, Destiny's Child is 90. So I think they carried it. I'm not sure that the same, but they carried the article as it was. So when I gave him that, he was very happy.
Okay.
And he said, you make this article into a book. That is how my journey in writing began.
Oh, wow. Was it difficult when he passed away?
Surprisingly, not that difficult. I know many of my friends were... You see, I've read some accounts, because it is definitely a relationship like no other, the guru-disciple relationship. I read the grief which someone like Sri M went through when his guru passed. When the Sufi mystic Radha Mohan Lal lost his guru, his disciple is remembering how distraught her guru, who was Radha Mohan, was, that he told her that I am now an orphan. And she is thinking to herself, this man is 55 and he's saying such things. Because at that time, she could not see the depth of the guru-disciple relationship. Because you see, it is not a conventional relationship. Ultimately, it's your relationship with yourself. The guru-disciple relationship appears as two beings, two individuals, but it's one. And so, for me, it kind of was very strange. Of course, I was prepped for his passing by a series of incidents. One was when I saw that maybe 6 months before the satsang, before his passing, he had kept all his books to give away freely. For me, that was a kind of sign. Two was, I knew when his wife passed in June 2009, that he would not stay longer. Somehow it was an inner knowing. And three, my mother had a vision. In her meditation, she saw him in a realm of, in a hall, standing in the middle, and around him were seated spiritual masters who had all dropped their bodies.
Wow, okay.
So she told me that, I think, be prepared. So I was prepped that way. And of course, the last few weeks, he was in and out of hospital, in and out of consciousness. When I would go into his bedroom, he was really drifting. And so I remember then when he passed, I got a call from Chetanji, his brother. I was having breakfast and he said, "You can come, my brother has passed." And so my mother was there. I think I broke down for about 2 minutes and then I was okay. And then my first thought was how to reach there. Should I take my car? What if I don't get parking? What if it is towed? And I thought, I'll take a cab. Halfway down the stairs, I said, Sunday, there's never a cab here. So I went down. I was standing on the road. No cab in sight. And suddenly one cab comes. And the first thought that came to me was what he told me years back. Never run after the taxi, let the taxi come to you. And then I took the taxi, went home. There was in the living room Chetanji, Rameshji's son Shivdas, and one nephew. They were there. So I think I was the first of the others. I sat in his room for 15-20 minutes. It was very beautiful. And then after that, by and by, people started coming. So, see, when a teaching is part of you, imbibed by you, it's always there.
Absolutely.
I never felt he's not there. I feel that he's there everywhere.
Wherever he is, I feel he'll be very happy.
Someone asked him, one very sweet man, lawyer, before his passing, I remember going with him into Ramesh's room. He said, "Sir, are you coming back?" First, I could not understand that question, coming back from where? So then I realized he means, are you
coming back
to earth? And he, Ramesh replied, "I hope not."
My favorite two chapters of two essays, I should say, of the book are Death and Love and Silent Love.
Yes.
And I could do a 6-hour podcast on both of those chapters. But you've sort of tried to explain love and unconditional love through death. It would be lovely if you could share a little bit about that. How are unconditional love and death close cousins?
Well, in a nutshell, because it's not a subject to speak about easily,
Yes, sir.
I feel everyone who has incarnated has two lessons to learn. One is death and the other is love. These are the core lessons to be learned in this plane of existence. And both are so intimately connected. Because death is the death of the ego. The death, the fear of death, one is the biological fear, which will make you look left and right before crossing a road. Not that death, but psychological death. The death of the me and my story. And so, to explore one's own relationship with death, with one's thoughts and feelings about death, and to see that this death of me and my story, the death of my judgments, my condemnations, my ill will, my spite, my hatred, my malice, my jealousy, my envy, the death of all that leads to what was always ever present, which is unconditional love. So that I would really be happy if readers read these two essays
Yes.
rather than speaking so much. But you see how closely they are connected.
Yes.
Love and death, to me at least, are really like twins. And that is why I remember my trip to Varanasi. You see, the first time I went to Varanasi, when we were on the boat in the Ganges and we went past Manikarnika Ghat, where all the funeral pyres were burning, it was quite a sight which was very intimidating, fascinating, intimidating, and many emotions I felt. The second time I went, which is recently, a few years ago, I told the tour guide, let's go to Manikarnika, but walking so we can be in the thick of things, you know. And we did that. And then he said that there's a temple there, Smashan Nath, Shiva's temple. So I went there, I sat and meditated there, and you can imagine funeral pyres all around. And I had a most beautiful 10-minute meditation there where I said, thank you for teaching me what you have taught me about death. Because everyone learns from death. That is the only certainty in life.
Yes, sir.
And so then I offered my gratitude to the Dhuni, to Shiva, and for me it marked a kind of full circle. And that is what I have written about.
After starting with uncle's death and all the way up till...
Yes.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much for talking to me. After reading this whole book about your journeys and how your life has been in general, I was reminded of a small poem that was written by Sultan Bahu, and I was introduced to it through a song in Coke Studio sung by Abida Parveen. And the song is called Main Sufi Hoon. I'm just going to quickly share it with you.
Sure.
It says, Akal fikr di jaan akai, jithe sir wahadat subhani hu. There is no place for wisdom or thought there, where the unity of the divine is the secret. Na ut mulla pandit joshi, na ut ilm kurhani hu. Grand professors, priests, and astrologers have no use there, and bookish knowledge of scripture has no worth. Jad Ahmad Ahad Vikhali Ditta, taan kul hoye fani hu. With the veil of M removed, when Ahmad was revealed as Ahad, one with God, then all creation merged with the reality of Him, the remover of the small self and the revelation of the self with the capital S. Ilm tamam ki tune hasil bahu, thap kitaban asmani hu. You've acquired all kinds of knowledge, Sultan Bahu. Now shut the holy books and put them away. And these are the lines that I really felt, this whole book resonated. मैं सूफी हूँ सरमस्त था, मेरा कौन पहचाने रास्ता. I am a mystic in ecstasy, an ecstatic mystic. Who can trace the path of my journey?
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And see, ultimately, that's it. Dropping all the books away.
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, it is a journey heart to heart.
It is heart to heart.
And the inspiration for the title is this. When the Sufi mystic Bhai Sahib of Kanpur was asked by his disciple, Russian disciple, said, what is the meaning of parampara? And he said, it means heart to heart. She said, really? I thought it meant lineage.
Yeah.
He said, same thing. You see, there's a very important pointer here. It is a heart to heart
transmission. Heart to heart.
Yes.
Thank you for a lovely heart to heart.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
So, Gautam, I want to jog your memory about heart to heart.
Sure.
So, I'm going to give you some words and I want to know if you can guess what I'm talking about.
Wow. Okay, let's try.
Horses, standard, destiny, war.
Horses, standard, and destiny would be the Nanumriga chapter.
And objects in your house.
Objects in my house. This is like a riddle. War. Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When I read that chapter, it was really moving for me, although it was so full of gory detail.
Saying horses, standard, it's all referring to Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
Not Nanumriga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, as I read the book, the entire book, was that although you say very often that I didn't have any interest in any of this and I came to it very late, one of the things that struck me was at 12 you saw Joan of Arc and it left, and you heard the explanation your mom gave you and it left a very deep impression.
Yes.
And it continued for 2 decades after.
Right.
So would you say a bit more about?
Well, so Joan of Arc is very interesting as far as I'm concerned, because my memory goes back to our trip to Mussoorie, which was where my mother's childhood was. And she liked picking up antiques. So she picked up a statue of Joan of Arc. Now that statue was white porcelain, where Joan of Arc is tied to the stake. And she got this home to Bombay. So at the age of 12, when I asked her who this is, she said it's a saint called Joan of Arc. And some called her a saint, some called her a witch. And those who called her a witch burnt her at the stake. So the statue is actually, she's on a pile of logs and there's rope around her and she's tied to the stake. So I was quite disturbed that how could a saint be called a witch? And I'm not sure my mother gave me much explanation beyond that when I was 12. So it became this investigation on my part. And remember, at that time, there was no internet. There was no going on to Google to read about Joan of Arc. So I had to rely on books. So that for me was a journey of discovery. I was actually quite not only fascinated by, but obsessed with Joan of Arc's story. And what really troubled me about it was when I started reading that this girl in her adolescence hears a voice telling her to pick up the sword which is in her church and go to the young prince of France and say that she will lead them into battle. Such an absurd situation, unrealistic.
Yeah.
But the innocence of the child is such that she does that. And her faith in the voice. You see, so now I'm sure many people are familiar with Joan of Arc's story. So for me, Joan of Arc was a classic example of God's will operating through an instrument. A young girl who had no idea of war, listening to a voice in her head and following it. And ended up fighting battles. You see, so as I grew older, got more familiar with the story, and finally I reached the doorstep of my spiritual guide. And all these chips fell into place. That everyone is an instrument. And in this case, Joan of Arc was an instrument. And I couldn't come to terms with the way she died initially. But when I realized everyone is here to play their part, and what she must have felt in the Inquisition, when they tried to label her witch and various other things. And I read George Bernard Shaw's play of Joan of Arc, which was deeply moving, because in the play, he then takes it to when everyone is in heaven. And each is discussing their roles in Joan of Arc's life. That time it struck me. Because see, the human mind, my mind was, how could God do this to his chosen one?
Yeah.
How could he make her get burnt at the stake? I found it very hard to digest that. And how she must have felt that she has obeyed the voice and this is what is happening to her. And yet, at the last instance, when the pyre is lit, she asks that from afar someone hold up a cross, because that was the last thing she wanted to see, which to me represents an acceptance of the will of God. First is the fight, how did this happen, and surrender. So I was so moved by her story that when I was in France, I visited a lot of places associated with her. Really, and I've written about this in my essay on Joan of Arc and the extremity of God's will.
Yeah.
It was extreme.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen such an example of extremity before.
Yeah.
And to the extent, I remember reading accounts of like how when you're burnt at the stake, the first thing is your blood boils. Your blood boils, your heart bursts. I mean, these things would be really painful for me to read when I would discover this whole process. But it is the teaching of Advaita which kind of made me accept, not only in Joan of Arc's life, but my own life, nothing really makes sense. We are always seeking cause-effect relationships in life. Why did this happen? Because I did this, and so on and so forth. That is the thinking mind trying to dissect an event in linear time. When this no longer happens because you stop making sense of life, I feel then one is living life more fully. So many people write mails and ask me, oh, we are good people. Why did God do this to us?
Yeah.
See, our view is so narrow. My teacher would say the cosmic law is in operation for all time. And the puny human intellect has a very narrow view of what's going on. On that narrow view, it judges.
And when you say accepting what is, and earlier you were talking about God is what is.
Yes.
And I find this links to the divine feminine, which is a very receiving sort of energy, and how you've been called to go and visit temples of the goddess.
Yes.
Across the country. One of my favorites is the Matangi story. So if you want to start there, or anything that you want to start with.
Well, the divine feminine is, in my personal life, it is a very living force, because I can see my mother's hand of guidance through my life. I have two sisters, how they've supported me, my wife. So the feminine, I have been surrounded by feminine energy. Now, let's not forget the Kundalini Shakti is the divine feminine. So I kind of marinated in all this. And in terms of not only Indian goddesses, I remember going to sacred places in Europe. In France, Lourdes is one of them. Fatima, when I went for satsangs in Portugal, Lisbon, on New Year's Day, my host took us to Fatima. I remember going to a cathedral called Chartres, which is one hour from Paris. And there was a chapel dedicated to the Madonna. And I remember going and sitting there, not knowing why, but just sitting there for a long period of time. So for me, it has been a tangible power. And many trips which I've written about, like my trip to Ambaji, unless that is in the book to come.
I think so.
I think so. So that is where the heart of the goddess is supposed to have fallen. And I was very keen to go there. And that was a beautiful trip. Matangi Ma came to me through visions. And she is the tantric form of the goddess Saraswati. So again, a series of coincidences pertaining to Matangi Ma, because I had never heard of this name earlier. So again, it was all new. It wasn't coming from reading something, then deciding to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And her symbol is the parrot, because the parrot symbolizes speech. So it's really fascinating, and this is what I hope for, that those who read Heart to Heart come across stories which they probably were not aware of, not familiar with. Just as I was not familiar with these dimensions. And so my quest then took me to various other places connected to the Divine Feminine.
What was quite often in the book, I come across, there was a vision or there was a name that kept coming up for you, or in meditation or in a dream. Were there, would you say these are reflecting your internal state? These travels are reflecting your internal state?
Well, I'm not sure. In a way, yes, but also a lot of it is unconscious or subconscious, waiting to be revealed, waiting to be exposed. I'll tell you something not directly related. I read about one Gyani in Gujarat. He was explaining to his disciples that, let's say someone wins a lottery ticket. You think, wow, what luck. He said, no. The seed of that lottery ticket is already in the subtle body of this person. And at the appointed hour, this person, in order to manifest wealth, will be made to think of buying a lottery ticket. He'll buy that lottery ticket, which gives him the jackpot. So, the seeds of what we are as human beings, where we travel, what is our aspiration, those are inner state, no doubt. In that sense, they are. And they then reflect out this way. But it is not a reflection of the inner state, which I think is mine based on tangible evidence. See, we are a collection of so many vasanas, sanskaras, impacts. It's a very long story. And what comes up when, we don't know. It is like once in my mother's meditation, group meditation, one girl started making very strange noises. And then the others judged her. My mother let it play out. And at the end, when they were to come again next week, she said to this lady, if it happens again, do not hesitate to let these voices come out. Forget the others. Why? Because what is buried deep within, whether it is the animal aspect, an ancient aspect, is now in meditation being allowed to emerge and be released. So yes, it's very easy for someone who has the vision to see where people are on their journeys. So I would agree with you in that sense, but all I'm trying to point out is that inner state is very vast.
Yeah. And it's not something you can say, this is my inner state.
Yes, exactly. But it is there. And after all, the principle is as within, so without.
Yeah. Another moving story about the divine and feminine was of Mukambika in Kollur,
Yes.
that temple. And I wonder what has stayed with you after all these years about that experience.
You see, that again, Mukambika Ma was special for me because of that old man I met there, who was living there for 25 years. And it was amazing because he took us to a room which had a large painting of Adi Shankara. Then I remember there was a metallic snake, which of course represents the Kundalini. And people were rubbing it in reverence, but not knowing much about it. I could understand it was the Kundalini. So he guided us to do that. And he made me draw a yantra, which is the Shatkona yantra. So a lot of strange things happened with him. I mean, clearly I was meant to meet him and get something from him. So here again, what I would like to say is, we may go with one objective to a place, something else may happen.
Yeah.
But we have to be attentive and receptive, because we tend to shut doors very fast. But to be open to what the universe brings our way could be a silent blessing. We can even shut ourselves out of that. And so I've written all about this in my trip to Mukambika. For me, it's not just the deity and the temple, it's the whole experience and what transpires in that kshetram, in that field. What transpires, which is not tangible and perhaps viewed as not important through the ordinary mind. But that can be extremely important. And this is what I would like to point out to readers, that when you go to these places, the problem is if we go with an expectation, we tend to not look at the rest. When we open ourselves up, something else happens. It's really magical.
Was there ever a point when you doubted whether this was the thing to do?
Many times. But then I know that even my doubt is so limited that even that thought drops away. Sometimes I really wonder, what am I doing here? Wherever I am. But then immediately the involvement in that thought is cut off. Not my will, O Lord, but thine.
For me, when I hear not my will, but thine, it keeps bringing me back to death. I know you've already spoken about it, but and again with Kali, who represents death and rebirth, and your encounter with her. And if you could say something about that.
I would like to say, before coming to that point, is two murtis of Kali which really moved me. One was at Dakshineshwar, Ramakrishna's Kali, which I found to be so beautiful and yet intimidating. That truly I felt was something, for me at least, which captivated me. The other was in Varanasi at Trelanga Swami's ashram, where there is a seemingly simple looking murti of Kali Ma, which he made walk. There's a story about it. People can read about it. There was something about that which, again, I was quite taken up. It's not very beautiful and it's not adorned with, a lot of things, but there's a power there. Kali is a very raw power. One has to be very careful with it. Now, coming back to the story which is in the book, I was suggested to do a small Kali puja at home, a very simple one, once a week, putting milk, honey, and making a prayer. So, being someone who's disciplined, I had no thought, oh, how can I do this? Will I be able to maintain it? I was happily doing it on Wednesday. But till a point, I felt that this is not me. because I'm not asking Kali Ma for anything specific. I'm just happy to do it. And so I decided that maybe I should stop. And then I informed my mother that, she said, let's not stop it this way. Go to a Kali temple in Bombay and just tell Kali Ma in your mind that I've been happy to do this, but now I feel it's enough, which I did. I followed that protocol. But very strangely, the next morning at breakfast, she told me she had a dream. Now, my mother was initiated when she was very young, I think about 13 or 14, by a young Swami Mohangiri. In the dream she had the night before, he has come to her, whom she has never thought of since that age, which is like we are cutting across 60 years maybe. And he tells her, tell Gautam not to stop like this. There will be repercussions. And then he suggested that do it for a certain number of days and this is how it is to be stopped. So this, of course, I followed because I remembered reading a story in one of the Aghora books of the Aghori Vimlananda, where he gave a Ganpati mantra to someone and that man decided to stop doing it. And the next morning he woke up with a swollen jaw because Ganpati had come and hit him on the face or something to that effect, and he unfortunately passed away. So you see, sadhana is a very serious business. One has to be very careful. So, of course, I was thankful that Swami Mohangiri told my mother in the dream that this is the way to do it. But what struck me is your spiritual guide is always with you. That is really proof, in this case at least, that although the physical contact had gone, he had dropped his body decades ago, whatever it may be, the presence is always there as a guiding presence. That was really something which proved to me that you never really can break a relationship whose foundation is spiritual.
So I want to digress a little bit and ask you something which is not in the book, but that kept coming up for me as I was reading Heart to Heart, which is we can tell stories and we can tell multiple stories about ourselves, which highlight different aspects of ourselves or our lives or our experiences. And Heart to Heart really brings up a lot of your spiritual experiences in your life, in your journey as a publisher, in all the people you've met, the places you've been invited to, either through dreams or just in very synchronistic ways. So is this how you live your life, where you're being lived, rather than actually? I kept wondering, is there a day when you say, this is what I'm going to do, and pursue it? Or a time in your life where you say, I want to go here, there, and the other place? Or is it always, not always, but is it mostly that it comes and you accept?
No, it is more like, this is what I think I want to do. Not this is what I want to do. And when that happens, well and good. When not, I'm equally fine with it. So one could say that one is less emphatic about doing things, knowing that if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. If not, it won't. I can say that my journeys, my spiritual journeys, it's clearly a phase. It's not that it's a constant. It's not my passion in terms of an external activity. And as we've written about, that I'm only going where I've been called beyond my conscious mind. I'm not choosing like which temples to visit and researching and going. It is whether it has come in a dream or vision and I'm pursuing it. Someone had asked me this question. Does it mean if for the rest of your life you keep getting these visions and dreams that you'll run everywhere? It doesn't mean that. But if I have the resources, if I have the energy, if I'm able to, and if it is happening effortlessly, then I go. I go with the flow. If there's a lot of doership, a lot of effort, if it's extremely difficult, I may choose not to. That is how I have lived my life. And when Heart to Heart came out, someone who's in his early 80s, he was quite surprised that this book came out from me because he knows me for a long time as an Advaita student and teacher now. And he said, why has Gautam written about temples and the external world when Advaita is all about the essence of living? And he said, I realized the sheer fact that you were led to these places means they were meant to be written about. And more importantly, he said, the way I see it is there's so much content out there. He said, imagine you could have written a journey through the pubs of India, right? But you are writing about spiritually charged places across the length and breadth of this sacred land. And maybe through going there, when people read your book and go there, it triggers their inner journey. Now, I didn't think that far. I didn't analyze why this was happening. But I think he summed it up very well. That what role these chapters, these locations have to play, they will play for the people who read the book. I already meet many people who said, hey, so-and-so chapter appealed to us, and we went there. And different chapters appeal to different people based on their blueprint, their destiny. So I am very clear that if destiny unfolds for them in a certain way, they will be led to those places. And India is really a truly blessed land. I was just telling someone the other day, the number of samadhis of enlightened beings in India, I don't think any other country has that. And these are charged places, you see, because the body of an enlightened being is the temple of God. Why do we have samadhis of the great sages like Shirdi Sai Baba, Ramana Maharshi, Anandmayi Ma, Sri Aurobindo? They are there for a reason. And people who go there draw something from that. You could call it a vibration, an experience, a power, whether they know it or not. And this is India's gift, which I, who was not connected with this landscape, quite alien to it, somehow got connected. And maybe it is for me to just tell people it's not that difficult, it is there. And if you feel moved to go somewhere, please trust your intuition. Ultimately, of course, all journey is an inward journey. Peace of mind, Sukha, Shanti is within. But sometimes we need to tap something without, which pushes us within. Why did India's sages go to the samadhis of their gurus? Nisargadatta Maharaj used to go and perform Aarti at Siddharameshwar Maharaj's samadhi. The Sufi mystic Bhai Sahib would go to his guru's samadhi. They were realized. They didn't have to, yet they did. We have to think about all these things.
And I'm also, when I go through the book again and again, I'm also hit in the face literally by the kinds of landscapes you have traversed. And in the chapter with Gorakhnath, you say that he was roaming the countryside.
Yes.
And I thought, but so are you.
Yes, but today I have modern transport. What did he have? in those days to move across not only the length and breadth of India, but to climb peaks like Girnar or Gorakh Gufa near Trimbakeshwar. These are all pretty high. Of course, you can't compare the Gorakhnath spot in Girnar with Gorakh Gufa, but I mean, it's amazing. Now, not only whether he did it physically, whether he did it in his subtle body, but that sheer expanse of someone like Lord Gorakhnath. Anywhere you go, I went to Gorakhpur, the main seat of Gorakhnath. I went to South India outside Chennai. There is a temple, Perur Shiva temple, and they have a small garden named after Gorakhnath. And I'm just baffled that in those days, how did this happen? I mean, we have beings of such spiritual stature. Of course, he was considered an avatar of Shiva, but these are places where you and me can physically be even today.
Yeah.
Something as ancient as that is available to us today. So one could consider such places as portals to the subtle dimension.
Were they for you, and what is that experience? What does that mean actually?
Something which is not tangible, but perhaps will aid you on your spiritual journey. Now, people have had tremendous experiences at spiritual locations across India. I know many people, many experiences. I have not had these kind of I have had experiences which have taken me to the places, but not given me experience in those places. That was my portfolio, was to be taken there. I'll tell you something very funny. Once I was in Trimbakeshwar. I went up to the Gorakh Gufa. So I was sitting in the Gufa, and there's the caretaker. He was sitting there. And so suddenly I just decided to chant the 2 Gorakhnath mantras I know. And normally I internalize a mantra, but somehow I felt like reciting it. So I chanted the first one 11 times, and then the second one 11 times. And as soon as I ended, I saw the young yogi in front of me, his eyelids flapping, and he went into samadhi. And I was like, this has never happened to me. And it's happened to him. So it reflects his bhav for Gorakhnath, which was very moving for me. So then I just bowed down. I didn't want to disturb him, because you should never disturb someone who's in that state, because they can come out with a jolt. So I just bowed down before him, and then I left. So different people have different kinds of experiences at these places. But what I would like to say is that don't go with the expectation or hope of an experience. Just go there to simply be. See, across the world, you have this concept of ley lines and crossing power points, because these are like energy centers. So it is not necessary, depending on how your vibration is, how you are built, that you must feel something there or see something there. Why set up this expectation? Just go there, present yourself, and come back.
And in the book, it seems like it went well, wherever you went, mostly.
Yes.
And there was, I remember only one place where it seemed like it was too hard, and that's Girnar.
Yes, Girnar was too hard because it was summer. And it was May. Very few people go up Girnar in May. But you see, I have this thing that if a calling comes, it needs to be finished soon. One should not wait. So then these become secondary. Oh, let's go when it's winter. Let's go when it's convenient. So I didn't give it much thought. Now I believe Girnar has a ropeway. The ropeway goes to the halfway mark, But we climbed the entire stretch.
And
It is truly a mystical mountain. And through my spiritual publishing career, through my spiritual journey, this name kept coming up. Where a lot of mystical experiences have happened with people, lot of spiritual encounters have happened. So it is a very fascinating place, and I've written about one account of Girnar, which is in the book, of what actually transpires with Lord Dattatreya and the mountain. So readers who are interested in these kind of explorations will find that fascinating.
And this mystical experience that is available to everyone, it's also important to access it in a particular way. Because I know I'm digressing, but I'm just... because I know that some people have accessed this through taking a very strong drug. And so I wanted to know if... And many people say that that's a great way of doing it. The shamans have done it.
Yes.
People have engaged with the occult across the history of mankind. So what is that kind of engagement? Is there a right way to engage with it, or is it...
See, my spiritual teacher would say, any experience is a free sample. So whether it is through drugs, whether it is a spiritual experience which happens on its own, but it is still a sample. What happens is, when we get this experience or this free sample, we tend to chase it.
Yeah.
That is the downfall. So my experience has not been one where drugs have given me any spiritual state, because I've not done drugs. So I wouldn't know about that. But according to me, the ultimate experience is peace of mind, and peace of mind is not an experience. And that is why in my journey, when I started doubting my guru, because people were saying it's too simple, peace of mind, peace of mind. I asked myself, maybe there's something more. And when I had that doubt, I was reading talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. And I came across one line which said, the state of equanimity is the state of bliss. I put that book down and I said, my answer is given. Something as simple as the state of equanimity. That is all. And yet it's everything. And that is why I feel, because again, as Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi said, when he was asked, how do I know if a sage is a genuine sage? He replied saying, by the degree of peace you feel in their presence and the sense of respect you feel for them. Degree of peace. So, while I agree it can sound like a very low target, it is really not. Because this peace is so deep, and it is a peace which pulsates, is tangible. And that, therefore I say that whichever spiritual teacher you go to, teaching you go to, sacred place you go to, whatever it may be, apart from a mystical experience, does it leave you with a sense of peace? That one must ask oneself. For me, that is the only measure, just like my teacher would say, that is the only measure. So all this in the external world, whether it is drugs, whether it is just a mystical experience, whether it is visiting a sacred place, having an experience, should come back to this one point.
And sometimes has an experience, does it have the ability to jolt you out of peace? A spiritual experience could.
I mean, if one was peaceful by nature and the experience came, could be. Could be. For example, a Kundalini awakening tends to jolt one out. But it is rare that one is already in peace and then has this experience. Usually, it is these experiences which lead one to peace. At least that is my understanding. Of course, there are spontaneous experiences where it just happens to people at a certain age based on their prarabdha. As Ramana Maharshi said, most of it is prarabdha karma. But then that was all latent. The peace was already there, not discovered. But pursuing experiences is what creates a lot of suffering. Then when people take a drug, have a mystical experience, then they tend to take more and more to get that same experience.
Yeah.
That is what happens.
As with even other things, one would meditate more and more to get.
Yes. So, as my teacher would say, too much doership. And that is why meditation, I liked his definition the best. True meditation is witnessing whatever arises in the day as movements in consciousness. Not just a practice of half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. True meditation is throughout. It's a state of being.
I wanted to ask about the Nath tradition and the sense of belonging you have with it. And it's an odd sort of, from your background and who you are, who you say you are, and then say, I belong to this tradition, and which is, associated, when you think of it in our context in India, you think of Sampradaya as this very classical sort of one way of doing things and very ritualistic and all of that. But then it's a odd marriage.
Well, I don't think I've ever said I belong to it. I am deeply, I feel connected to Lord Gorakhnath. And it doesn't come through the conscious mind. Through life, through the journey of life, when I found that I was being led to places associated with Gorakhnath, again without any will as such. Someone would say, let's go there, and he would take me there. Let's go here, and I would go there. It kind of was unfolding on its own, this reverence for Gorakhnath. And in that sense, it has become a very real presence for me. I don't follow any rituals. But like I said, Trimbakeshwar is the closest spot. I've been to many other places I've written about. Like we were discussing, I went to Orissa to, again, this is not in this book. I went to Orissa to the Jagannath Puri temple, but ended up at a place connected to Gorakhnath, which is a site I have never seen before. It is a tree, a banyan tree, which has multiplied itself 30 times and created sub-trees, which is where Gorakhnath used to sit and meditate. So these chant strips, which, as I said earlier, I've not mapped it out and said, let's go here, let's go there. They happen. So I kind of feel, now you could call it a fantasy, you could call it delusion, you could call it wanting to be associated with a particular energy, whatever it may be. It is what it is. But I feel this kind of constant hand of the Navnaths of Gorakhnath especially, somewhere there. I do feel that. And it's interesting because I was following Tibetan practice, healing and breath work. And I could not put my finger on it, that how has this come in with all this background? And I got the answer from a Vajrayana master I met in the Northeast. I gave him my map, my spiritual map, explained him everything and said, but this kind of is not fitting in. And he said, who was the source of the lineage? I said, Padma Sambhava. And he then told me who Padmasambhava was and how he was connected to the Naths. Then everything fell into place. It's all the same thing. And to end on one note, which I would like to, which is on what Gorakhnath says, which for me is the summation of Advaita and non-doership. सहज मिला सो दूध बराबर, मांग लिया सो पानी, खींच लिया सो रक्त बराबर, गोरख बोले बानी. What comes unasked naturally is like getting milk. Sahaj mila so doodh barabar. Mang liya so pani. Now, when you ask, it's a sense of doership. When you don't ask, it comes no doership. When you ask, it is like getting water, which is not like milk. Khinch liya, when you take what is not yours. So rakt barabar, it is like getting blood. Extreme doership. So first is no ask, then ask, and then you take, you snatch. These, in this verse, he's laid out the entire teaching of Advaita, for me at least. Thus says Gorakhnath. That is why I begin the book with this verse.
Is that a good measure to see that you're going with what is arriving without effort?
I think so, because you see, Nisargadatta Maharaj said, what comes unasked is what is meant for you, pleasure or pain. I think that is the foundation. Extreme doership destroys peace of mind.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.